But that, again, drama, theater, they're not exactly the same. You know, I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I'm going to say something, and I'm sure somebody might say that's not true. But I heard this story that drama in Greek means to do. I'm going to go with that. And theater comes from the Greek word theatron, which is a place of viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody check that. Fact check.
We don't fact check here. No.
I will try.
That was our guest, Richard Silberg, speaking. And we did fact check that.
Mm-hmm. And Richard is right. The word theatron in Greek means place of viewing, while the word drama means act or deed from the word for I do, drao, doing something, an action.
Nice. So that plunges us directly into our topic for today, drama in the English language classroom.
Yes, but before we dive in with our guest, Richard, just a quick awkward moment. We are still asking for donations, friends.
Yep, awkward. It's our fall donation drive, listeners. If you can spare a little change, we'd be super grateful if you went to the support us part of our website,
teacherthinkaloud.com/support-us,
where you can choose to donate whatever you can, from a one-time $5 donation to merchandise to ongoing monthly contributions.
And if you can't spare the change now, please share an episode with your friends and colleagues. Your support goes a long way.
Yes. Okay, Anna, on with the episode?
On with the episode. Hello, and welcome to the Teacher Think Aloud podcast, a podcast for reflective practice for teachers of English around the world. I'm your co-host, Anna.
And I'm Shey. Enter Richard.
My name is Richard Silberg. I go by he. I'm kind of semi-retired, I guess you would say, although I feel like I've been extraordinarily busy. Right now I'm subbing for a class at an adult ed program in San Francisco that is designed for students on visas that they have to study English while here. And I did a 4.5-hour live class on Monday, which was great. And then I did a 4.5-hour Zoom class last night, which was exhausting. I've never...
Yeah, this is not retirement.
No, not yet. I've done some work with American.
He was recently in Albania teaching Afghan refugees, teenagers.
He was also a full-time middle school teacher and taught not just ELL, but also drama.
We even discovered he taught math at some point.
And not to mention, he was an English language fellow in Cambodia, where he trained pre-service middle school teachers. And he was an English language specialist in Timor-Leste.
Playing chess, teaching juggling. It was intriguing. I've done a lot.
Yeah.
In my
No kidding.
career.
And as usual with our guests, we decided to throw him an icebreaker and see how he would react.
Take a look at your phone
Yeah.
and describe the first picture on your camera roll.
Oh, okay. So I go to photos. Is that the first?
The first one,
not
if
the one
it's
that
appropriate for the
You mean
Maybe the most
earliest?
recent, right?
Oh, the most recent.
recent? Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
The very most recent.
So
Uh-oh.
this was after my Zoom class last night. I made myself my favorite drink, and because the class was in the evening and it ended, it was from 2 to 6:30, and I poured myself a Negroni, a mezcal Negroni, with my new latest recipe that I've made up. It includes Spanish sherry, Amontillado. So instead of a sweet sort of vermouth, you use that, and it's great. Anyway, that's my last.
That's nice. That's a good one. I will say, Anna, as a side note, I've tried that cocktail Richard's describing right now, and he's a dangerous mixologist. You just need one, really.
So I've heard. Yeah. And honestly, you're in the right place, Richard, because I think we've referenced alcoholic drinks several times on this podcast.
We asked him to share his Negroni recipe with us. You can find it in the show notes, listeners.
Priorities, everyone.
Okay, enough about cocktails.
Seems like a fun guy to hang out with.
Oh, yes. So, plunging into the purpose of this episode, we then asked him how he got into drama, especially how he started using it in the English language classroom.
But how I came to it is, for me, an interesting story because I entered drama through the gateway drug of storytelling. My intent when I was starting to teach in 1980 was to be an elementary teacher. And I remember my student teaching. It was in a kindergarten and reading storybooks and telling stories. And then I had a 2-year gig working in a science education museum. And every other Sunday I would tell nature stories in the library, which was pretty cool. And then I was a river rafting guide, and it's expected that you're going to be a storyteller at the campfire. So I loved storytelling and would do it that way. And there was one day, I remember I was reading a story or telling a story to my 6th grade class, and this girl came up to me at the end of class and said, you should be an actor. You have a really good voice. And I thought, well, that's a really good idea. How do you do that? So a couple of days later, I saw a poster. Back in the day, posters on telephone poles, and it said a new theater company starting in Berkeley, California. Call to audition. So I pulled off the number and called it up, and I told the guy who was the director, I've never acted before, but I'm interested. And he said, well, yeah, come in and do an audition. And I had to say, well, how do you do an audition? And so he told me, get 2 little pieces that might interest you, look through some plays, and go ahead and do it. And I did it. I just wanted to see if I had the courage to do it, and then I would take an acting class. Well, I had the courage, and I had a great time. And then he cast me as the lead.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow.
And this
That
was
escalated quickly.
35 years ago. It escalated quickly.
Yeah.
I got so immersed in it with this theater company. This theater company is actually one of the bigger theater companies in the Bay Area right now. It's an equity company. But I was in their first play, and I stayed with them for 10 years.
Wow.
And that's where I was getting my acting training, but I was teaching full time. And my principal noticed that I was really frazzled. And he said, he said, why don't you start a drama program at our school? I said, huh? That's an interesting idea. He said, then you could do both, right? So I transitioned to teaching drama while being an actor. Over time, I realized that I had both these dual loves, theater and teaching ESL. I stopped acting and then just married those two and developed an English through drama program at my school, which it just became a passion project for me for the rest of my career.
Wow.
And still is, because I'm a real proponent of it as a way of not just teaching, but experiencing language.
Wow. Yeah. So I think that's the perfect transition to our next question, which is, why use drama in the English language classroom? You said you're a proponent of it. What makes you a proponent of it?
Well, I was thinking about this. I was thinking that the fundamental thing in theater, in drama, whether it's film, television, a play, whatever form it takes, is about relationship. It's not about the words. It's about the relationship between you, your environment, you, a scene partner, you, and yourself. It's relationship. And the desire to communicate something to someone to achieve something. So, actors reduce it to these things called objectives or wants. Like, I want to convince you. I want to seduce you. I want to embarrass you. I want to humiliate you. Whatever your want is, then the words just fit it, right? So I think if our fundamental job as language educators is to help our students communicate what they want to communicate, whether it's to travel or to become an academic, we help them with that. And I think drama does that intrinsically without having to force it. I don't think of drama as just doing role plays, which have their place, but I have a much broader canvas of what drama means in the class.
That's a really good point. I love that lines up with this idea of rhetorical purpose in language. This made me think of how when teaching language, we're thinking about function over form, trying to create a connection for learners so they see how language can help them reach a certain outcome, achieve their communicative goals.
Yeah. And I also was really curious about what Richard said about drama not just being role plays.
Yeah.
I'll admit my attempts to bring drama into the classroom have relied heavily on role play.
I mean, role plays are really great learning tools, great ways to stimulate communicative functions.
Yeah, I've done a lot with what I'll refer to as amped up role plays, even though that sounds kind of cheesy. Instead of placing the focus on the actors in the scene, I'll incorporate audience members to take on more of an active role. I'll give them a chance to determine communicative paths for the actors, a sort of choose your own adventure, if you will, dictating elements of the scene and how things play out. I think that it makes the process interactive for all students and removes a bit of the pressure to perform that the actors might feel.
Nice. I love that extra layer you've created there.
Thank you.
I've also used role plays a lot, especially for business English courses. There are so many great scenarios to use for that. But coming back to what Richard said, beyond the role play.
So take us beyond this idea of, when teachers think of integrating drama into the classroom, the first stop, I think, is role play.
Exactly.
So take us beyond that.
Okay.
What are some of your go-to strategies?
Well, the basic building block for me is the tableau. So the tableau is just a fancy word for a frozen picture. It could be like, this is a tableau of fear. I'm holding my hands up. You can create that alone. But if you remember what I said earlier, the most important element of drama is relationship. So if I'm doing this, if you could see me on this podcast, I would be holding my hands up in a very cliched look of fear. Then I might ask another student to come up and do something in relationship to that. So for me, the very first building block is not with words, but with our bodies. So I'm a very physically based teacher, partially because my acting training that I did was very physically based, so I'm most comfortable in it. And also it's a way of allowing students who are not yet ready, who are in the receptive stage or very shy with language, to participate fully. And they may be participating even in a better way than those that are very grammar oriented. So I have a variety of activities that help my students learn how to make effective tableaus. There's some techniques that work with it. And also what's great about the tableau is you don't need a theater space. You can just do it even if you have desks that are nailed to the dirt floor, because I did this in Cambodia in classes of 60 with those old desks that can't be moved, and we could find some space in the front of the room to have 5 students in tableau, or students could make tableaus at their desks. In an ideal universe, I created a really cool drama space where kids can move around and stuff, but it can be done in small spaces as well. So that's my first thing, is because then the tableau can build for things that are essential for first, like if you're doing introductory class for newcomer students who are brand new to the language, or you can use tableaus with advanced students as well, and I've done both. So let's say your students are studying literature, so advanced level. You can create a slideshow, a human slideshow of the main ideas of a story, a poem, a novel, an article. We created a tableau of an article. My students were studying World War I, and we read an article about food in World War I. And we created a human slideshow to show that. Then you could, and then you can add language. You do add language to it over time. I have this thing, it's called a ripple, where you take the tableau, and let's say you read an article about graffiti, and the students or the actors, performers, have a tableau of somebody doing graffiti, and maybe somebody doing the lookout, and maybe a passerby. They're frozen. Then one at a time, they turn and face the audience. And you can either scaffold it extremely, where they say, at this moment, my character is experiencing, or at this moment, my character is doing, at this moment, my character is thinking, whatever you feel is part of your language objectives. So it can match your language objectives. Or if your language objectives are a one paragraph essay or more sophisticated writing, that's what they could speak. And then they turn back to the tableau and another character faces out and speaks. So I guess what I'm getting at is with the tableau, you can go as deep as you want, or you can keep it at the beginning level. And that's why I think it is the basic building block for me, and I would recommend it for teachers. You can do it for vocabulary. Create a 5-person tableau that shows the word imagination. Students break up into the group of 5, and they have to negotiate about, well, what does that look like? How do we, you start off with the concrete, create a tableau of a chair, create a tableau of a bridge, create a tableau of a bicycle, and then you move to the abstract, and you can even move into complex language.
That one actually really reminds me. I guess I was using a tableau and didn't realize that was what it was called.
Good for you.
When I was a fellow in Armenia, I did an activity. I was teaching a narrative writing course. And for one of the in-class activities, we were talking about describing, what people are doing, describing a scene. And so I gave them little strips of paper that told them a different arrangement of how they should be standing or, comporting themselves. I called it statues.
Exactly. Which is what I call it.
Yeah. They had to first understand, what the directions were and imitate it. And then I had their partner had to look at them and then write down what they saw and describe what they saw and then match up as close as possible and see like, oh, well, I missed this detail, or, oh, actually that wasn't exactly the right word for what they were doing. And they had a blast. It was awkward initially, but they had a blast in the end.
It is awkward initially. All of it's awkward initially, and but what you described to me is drama. That's why I feel like I have a much broader canvas of what does drama mean, because they're communicating through their body something.
So, Anna, you've been hiding the fact that you already use drama in the classroom.
Well, that's the thing. I guess I didn't realize I was doing drama because of the way we often define drama, as role plays. But Richard's expanded definition of drama makes a lot of sense to me. It actually also reminded me, and I didn't mention this while we were chatting with Richard, but it reminds me of the French improv group I was a part of briefly in college. I majored in French, and I had this amazing professor, Dr. Andy McDonald. He booked out the Black Box Theater at my college and would get a bunch of French students to do improvisational theater, act out different scenes with our bodies, but also using language. It was a really great experience and a great way to use French spontaneously. One activity I remember was he would give us a phrase like à la plage, at the beach. And I remember acting out like unfurling my beach towel, putting on sunscreen, and the others had to guess what I was doing. And also, he taught us about the yes and rule for improv theater. I remember acting out a scene where one guy said, "Okay, what are we going to do about this cadaver?" And, and you can't go in another direction. You just have to continue with yes and. And so after acting out a whole scene where we talked about options for disposing of a dead body, I had the word cadavre burned into my brain.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. So nice, I think. It sounds like no set role plays.
No role plays. Nope. Just fusing gesture and movement with language learning.
Très cool. See, I can speak French too. No.
Very nice.
I love the use of improv to inspire authentic language use too. I think that it can be really useful in getting teachers to notice gaps in grammar or vocabulary knowledge.
So I love that.
Amazing.
I love that. So like in my drama class, when I was teaching it full time, we'd have this pretty ritualized thing we do every day that could be called freeze tag, but a better phrase is complete the picture, where two students start off, ideally, this is ideal, in the middle of a circle, but it could be the front of the class. And that's one thing I would want to emphasize is that the ideal is one thing, but it can happen anywhere. And they're shaking hands. And you ask the class, who are they? And you could simply, like when I have a brand new,
a story.
right? That's for later. But for like, so I had a class of newcomers, and the language level was either really beginning basic to a little more advanced. And so if somebody was brand new to the country, I might say, well, what's this? I'm going to touch that part of it. Do you know what that's called? Hand. Good. And then I might ask somebody that's a little more advanced, what are they doing? They're shaking hands. Who are they? What's the story? What happened the moment before? What's going to happen next? Then tap one of them who leaves. The other person remains still in that frozen pose. And I say, who can come up and create an image in relationship to that changes the story? And they might think of the hand as it's hard not to do what middle school students do, but what they do is they might turn around and have their hands up, and it's as if the hand is a gun. And then I say, who are they now? And as you said, what's the story? Develop a story out of this. I mean, you could use it for narrative writing. You could use it, and you can go say, okay, now sit down and write. You can do a lot of things with that. And you keep on doing this exchange, and you're constantly changing the story or completing the image to develop a new story. And that can go on forever. That's what I loved about it as a teacher. Very little prep. Very little prep. In fact,
so having
no
a couple
prep.
of those drama activities in your back pocket
Right.
and just knowing the right time to use them
Exactly.
and how far you can push with them.
Low prep is great.
Heck yes. The more activities we have in our wheelhouse, the more we can pull them out spontaneously as fits the needs of our students.
Something I was also thinking about while Richard was talking were the cross-cultural implications of using drama in the classroom. I'm sort of caught in the part of, students shaking hands, right? Like a really simple example
Right.
of that, something that's really common for us, but how that would be perceived differently from different cultural backgrounds, right?
Exactly.
So you can start to kind of pull out the reactions and what students say is happening in that tableau and analyze it from a cross-cultural lens.
Exactly. And that was a big advantage I had in my class here in Berkeley, because there was no one country students were from. There were 16 different languages in my
Nice.
class. And so there was, you get that, just implied in it. And then, of course, if you do it in another country where it's going to be perceived differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a lot of drama stuff in the work I was doing with the Afghan students in Albania this spring. We did tableau. We did the human slideshow of a story I told, and it was amazing how well they showed their understanding through their bodies, because they didn't yet have the language to say, oh, I know what the main idea of this story is. It's about a monkey and who likes this honey and blah, blah, blah. But they could show it. I think where it releases you as a teacher is realizing if students aren't speaking, some teachers interpret it as they don't understand, I have to do it again or whatever. Whereas indeed, if they can show it, then they have the comprehension, and then you can help them develop the language to communicate what they communicated with their bodies already.
Yeah, I love that you have kind of painted a picture of how you can use this on a spectrum from very true beginner to advanced.
Yeah.
I love that that is really incorporated into what you're saying
Right.
about drama.
And it just reminds me of one thing I did do on Zoom yesterday with these adult learners, and they did pretty well with it. We played a game. So what I'm doing is I'm holding a bandana, and I'm saying, this is not a bandana, and I can actually show it to the screen and make a movement and say, this is a snake. Well, with more advanced students, what we then did is people in the Zoom, they either chatted it or shouted it. I can't remember. Oh, what color is the snake? What is the snake doing? And suddenly, wow, you have so much more language. Why is the snake doing it? Well, the more basic student can just say, this is a snake. A more advanced student we might suggest that they add adjectives, they might add action, they might add a conflict, they can add a story. So you can do the same activity and everybody has a different access point.
Yeah. And I can imagine that, it might take some time initially for them to warm to the idea of doing an activity that is not so traditional in their eyes. But I do think that these kinds of activities really help let their guard down, right? So the affective filter goes down and they're really open to learning. They're having fun. I mean, when you're having fun, you learn, right?
I think you're right. And I think you hit on something that is challenging with everything we do as teachers is often the first time trying a new strategy, forget about drama, it could be a writing strategy. It's clunky. Or I've often had this idea that anything is effective if you do it as a routine.
Yeah.
Even a grammar-based kind of thing that those of us into communicative teaching poo-poo, it's effective if students are using it. And I think what I encourage people to do is to take a look at my website or some books that I recommend, find an activity that they like, and do it more than once. Though do it over and over.
I remember Anna and I had an episode about routine. It was called "Keep It Simple, Stupid," and we're always kind of mean, but we're thinking about learner engagement, and a lot of time teachers feel like they have to be performative. We have to do all of these new things to engage students, but routine I think is ultimately what gets that deeper buy-in than just throwing it at once, right?
That's episode 10, everybody. Check it out.
So I guess, you've almost kind of answered this question implicitly of, how do you, if you have a particularly shy or introverted student, how do you engage them? Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I actually have thought through this. This was asked to me very clearly by the teacher that I am currently mentoring, I guess, or advising. What I think is this is where time comes in. And that's where I think your comments about routines is if you keep it simple and keep the routine the same. So let's take that freeze tag example. I'd always have the same routine. And over time, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, it might be 3 weeks, students will engage. They will. And to make them engage, it's that whole, you have to buy into it yourself, is you have to find a way for that shy student to participate in a way right from the beginning. So that's why I might ask the student, I might be very close to them, just tell me the name of the body part that is touching right now. And I said, that's right, Shey, it's the hand. Well done, perfect. Thanks for participating. So you find, just like everything else, we find entry points, we scaffold. It's no different than anything else we know. And over time, there's a gradual release of responsibility to where the students almost take over that. And also group work rather than performative work. Sometimes students just get into groups and create 5 great tableaus, and they're doing it with others, not in front of the class.
I was actually going to say, would you recommend that teachers allow students to do any of these activities, in corners of the room, maybe not in front, not performing on a stage, right?
If you have the right room set up, yes. Sometimes I'll say, I'm just going to walk around and watch each of your tableaus. We're not going to share them today. Or if there's a group that really wants to share, so again, you keep it so that you're not suddenly saying, okay, now we're going to perform a play in front of the entire
You don't want to blindside them, right?
Right. Because I've done that where my ESL students have created original theater to perform to the school, which was very powerful, but that's not what we're talking about.
I really do love how Richard caters to all different English proficiency levels with his students.
Me too. By the way, listeners, Richard has a webinar on opening and closing routines and differentiation strategies coming up on American English Live on November 16th. 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
I'll be sure to join for that. It's on Facebook, right?
We'll share the link in our show notes.
So, to wrap up, we asked Richard to suggest some resources for teachers.
Richard, so really simply, if you were to recommend a jumping off point for a teacher who's eager to integrate drama into ELT but just doesn't know where to start, what would you say?
Well, in the spirit of shameless self-promotion, my website,
We like that.
eltdrama.com or richardsilberg.com. And I've documented through video and text many drama activities that I have done. And so I would say find something there that speaks to you. And the other thing I'm thinking of is, I don't know if I said it earlier, but I think of storytelling as the gateway drug to drama. And thinking about story and how to, for me, the easiest way is either to read a story or tell a story and have students make tableaus of that story. And there's a wonderful book, what is it called? Tableau Classroom Drama Activities by Rosalind M. Flynn. So this is actually it gives you the whole idea of how to create a tableau, and it even talks about what makes a good tableau. Because like everything else, there's messy tableaus and then there's these really great ones, and students you start dealing with all sorts of language like levels and active pose versus a passive pose. And one other book I recommend is specific for EL teachers. It's called In Their Own Words, Drama with Young English Language Learners by Daniel A. Kellen. And it is filled with ideas and detailed description. So those three resources, my website, those two books, I think would get someone started on one thing. But I would just say go physical if you can, if you're willing to.
Well, I feel inspired.
So much to work with.
Listeners, we hope Richard has piqued your interest in using drama in the classroom and given you a jumping off point to try it out.
And we would love to hear from you. How have you used movement and drama techniques in your classrooms? Or if you end up trying one of Richard's ideas, let us know how it goes for you.
Yeah, you can join the conversation on our various social media accounts. Email us via our contact form at teacherthinkaloud.com or comment via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. We welcome your reflections, questions, and ideas.
And remember, September is our fall donation drive.
If
you'd like to support us in creating more episodes and resources, you can donate at teacherthinkaloud.com/support-us.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Teacher Think Aloud podcast. And until next time, happy teaching.
And happy reflecting.